Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this session of the Glynn County Board of Commissioners special call meeting for Tuesday, June 15th. And we will get right into our agenda for today. And item number one is to receive an update from Georgia Port Authorities. And Catherine, if you'll introduce our...
Sure. Go. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I have asked Jamie McCurry, he is the Chief Administrative Officer with the Georgia Ports Authority, to give a brief update on the port operations in Brunswick. Obviously, there's been some things in the news recently, and I just felt that it was important for him to come here and have a discussion with y'all. If you have any questions, he'll be available after his presentation. So, Jamie, come on up. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be with you all today, and I understand this is going to advance everything for me. The slides are, these are the good news slides. I don't have any pictures of fires or one version or another of a fire, but I'm sure there might be some questions and we can talk about that. So if you don't mind, I'll just start. I think that, well, our mission probably is not of tremendous concern to you all, but we are an economic development engine created by the state to foster international trade, is the gist of it, for our communities. And so we have hopefully five soon, 4 current locations where we have port operating facilities. Of course, Bainbridge is a barge terminal that hadn't had a barge in about 30 years. We'll use that for inland movement of fertilizer and grains and stuff of that nature over there by rail and truck. The Appalachian Regional Port is an intermodal rail facility up in northwest Georgia, and hopefully soon we'll have a complement to that in northeast Georgia. But most of the business, of course, is with the deepwater seaports. In Savannah, we have 2 facilities, the Garden City Container Terminal, which is the largest single container facility in the Western Hemisphere, actually. And then down in Brunswick, we have 3 facilities, the 2 smaller facilities that are on the East River in Mayor's Point and East River Terminal, and then Colonel's Island, which kind of as a complement to the Garden City Container Terminal, is the largest roll-on, roll-off, or RoRo facility in the country. So we have the 2 bookend facilities in Savannah, the Container Terminal, in Brunswick, the Colonel's Island RoRo facility. Statewide, the ports and associated industries have a pretty significant economic impact. I think what gets lost sometimes is how local those impacts are as well. Obviously, Atlanta and throughout the state, there are a number of businesses and industries that rely on the ports for moving goods. But what it looks like more specifically here in Glynn County and in the surrounding areas, you can see over 1,800 jobs that are local to Glynn County. And if you expand that just a little bit and include Brantley, Camden, Long, and McIntosh, you're closer to 8,000 jobs that are local jobs that are related with port business. In terms of what that means in particular with the tax generation that comes from those jobs and businesses, as you can see more in particular in the bottom half of this slide, that $26 million in state tax, federal taxes are generated by the Port of Brunswick, 5 in state, 5.25 in local taxes, which is interesting that the local taxes are higher than the state taxes here locally, generation-wise. And then I don't know why it shows the 21% of East Coast container trade. That's supposed to show the RoRo trade, but nonetheless, Brunswick is the second busiest port for RoRo traffic in the country, and we'll get to that shortly. So Mayor's Point and East River, both of those are mostly driven by the forest products industry. Mayor's Point is exclusively a forest products facility, the smallest of our deepwater terminals there, right beside Mayor Ross Park. And of course, the East River Terminal is a little bit of a unique facility for us as far as the Port Authority goes. Each of the other terminals on the map earlier is a GPA-owned and operated facility. The East River Terminal is a GPA-owned facility, but it's the only one that we lease out to a third party to operate, and it's also the only facility that we have in our portfolio, if you will, that's primarily a dry bulk facility. So cargo that's not packaged, it's loose, and it's not primarily liquid. There are 3 tanks over there. We do have 1 small liquid bulk tenant there, but most of it going through Logistec has been the wood pellets, peanut pellets, salt, sand, perlite, things of that nature, and that's, again, kind of a unique facility. But most of what we end up focused on in Brunswick is the Colonel's Island Auto Facility. Again, the largest such terminal in the country. It is not the busiest single port for RoRo, but it's the largest single location. And this video is going to kind of highlight some of the recent improvements. In fact, some of the things that are shown as being underway or proposed are already completed now, because this is a couple-year-old video. In fact, the last State of the Port address that we were able to have pre-COVID, this was kind of the key part of that presentation. So you'll see this Berth 2 update, that will be actually finished here very shortly. The fourth berth down there is one that's permitted, and we hope to begin sometime next year if we're successful with the grant application. That's what the facility used to look like, and you'll see what it looks like here shortly in the final picture. But this 40 acres has already been completed for additional railroad traffic, and we've got quite a bit on the south side of the island that is available for further growth as we continue to try to recruit prospects, both from what we call the OEM side of the actual car owners, as well as additional auto processors. So we've got IAP, International Auto Processors, Wallenius Wilhelmsen, Mercedes, BMW, and to the extent that we had the chance to incentivize and recruit some new ones, we would do the same. Sometimes the video is a long drive. I can't fast forward it. That fourth railroad berth there, hopefully we'll be underway with that in the next year to 18 months. This parcel E is what we have been offering to prospects. The potential for rail expansion on the south side of the island is very important if we are able to recruit a new OEM, particularly for exports. And that's what the place not only looks like, but is also permitted to look like. So the bright green is either, in the case of parcel A, they're complete parcel. It's going to, well, I thought I was going to say B, but the other bright green is ready for development per prospect, and then the lighter colored green is permitted for development as we grow into it. And this is what I was referring to earlier as far as Brunswick being the second busiest port in the country for the essentially automobiles. It does include trucks and tractors and things of that nature, but RoRo overall, and it's been among the fastest growing as well. That's, I don't know why. I guess that's the videos, and they're twice for some reason, but oh well. That's the quick presentation. I know I didn't have that much time, and probably have some questions. I'll start with a brief update on the fire that was at the East River Terminal just over a month ago now. The commissioner, the fire commissioner for the state, has issued his findings on that to Logistec. I believe they received them on Monday. It goes through things that they feel did not go well and things that would need to happen in order for the resumption of wood pellet and peanut pellet handling at that facility. Specifically, before any reconstruction of facilities there handling equipment, there are buildings that could handle that type of product, but before the commissioner would allow that to happen, there has to be some barriers built in. There'll be capacity limitations on the amount and the height at which the pellets would be able to be stored in that facility. So for us, we've just received that report as well, and are going to be reviewing that with our tenant and determining what the best, most appropriate, and most importantly, safest next steps will be to more fully utilize that facility and see where we go. But we're not really sure exactly what those next steps are going to be yet, because as much as they got the report on Monday, we got it yesterday. So still in the digesting phase of that right now. But with that, are there any questions? Catherine told me to be quick.
What commission are you referring to?
The fire commissioner.
The what?
The state fire commissioner.
State fire
Same as the insurance commissioner. It's his office that issues it.
How about the local, where does the local fire chief fit into that, i.e. the Brunswick fire chief?
The commissioners, the state commissioner's report does include that the Brunswick Fire Department would have to be consulted as well and brought into the loop before any resumption would be in effect. Because of the nature of it being a state facility, it's under the umbrella of the state fire marshal, but obviously the local fire departments are critical to anything that we do, and we want to make sure that we and our tenants, put it that way, work more closely with them in the future, because clearly there's been some frustrations in that regard in the past.
Not counting the cars on the Golden Ray, which I'm sure we'll hear about later. How many cars y'all got scattered around out there?
Well, we'll do a little over 600,000 units through the facility this fiscal year. You know, any given point in time, you'll have 10, 15,000 on site, depending on what's going on. It's pretty amazing.
So what happened with the fire?
I believe that I would be stating it correctly to say that there were concerns about the height at which the piles of pellets inside the facility were stacked and how they were being managed in terms of whether and when water was put on them when they began to heat up in advance of the actual fire. There was also going to be some discussion with the tenant about dust within the facilities and how that can be more safely managed, because it's the combination of those two things that basically is what happened. You had a smoldering that became a fire, and it exploded when it came in contact with dust, and from there the fire went on pretty heavy.
So what happened the first time?
I think the first time there was a lightning strike involved on top of one of the conveyors, but nonetheless, those facilities were older and didn't have the modern fire suppression systems that the new building did have. But in terms of how that was managed, there's some questions from the fire marshal on that, and that's part of the investigation there.
Well, we have adequate water supply there, and you guys are on top of that.
That's another good question. There are concerns with the amount of water pressure that's available at the location in general, notwithstanding what fire equipment's on site and what fire fire suppression equipment and systems are on site, but the actual water pressure to the terminal is a concern. And one of the things that the fire marshal has included in that report is a requirement of having some water in a tank available, or a pump to be able to utilize water from the river for that, so that there's readily available pressure system there to handle that. Because the infrastructure serving the terminal is not as robust as I think that they would like ideally to have there. So having access to the river water would be the backup there.
And the access to the river water, is that via a tub pump or a fixed pump only?
They would request there be some kind of pump that, I'm not sure fixed is the right word. I think that might be something that can be placed into the water to then supply the fire system infrastructure at the facility. If that, I'm not sure I'm saying that in technically the right terms, but being able to put a pump in the water and connect it to the suppression system of the facility so that the pump can provide greater water pressure than is otherwise available through hydrants on site. And if I'm misstating that to any experts, I apologize. That's my understanding of it.
So who oversees the construction, or in this case, reconstruction of the project? Does the state oversee that whole thing?
Yes, sir, it does.
And so the city doesn't have any responsibility of that at all?
That's correct. There are codes, and the building was built to the codes. It's the operating of that was a question. I think that from our perspective as an authority, and I don't think I'm putting words into our board's mouth or anything when I say that any reconstruction again there will not look the same as what was reconstructed last time. The proximity to the houses there and other things will absolutely be looked at more closely, even if the previous building was built properly in terms of code and so forth.
So how the homeowners that live there, are you all talking to them about what the situation is, or as things progress, I guess with the reconstruction, will you all be meeting with them?
Yeah, I've not heard from any of them directly. We have met with the city manager and have committed to work with her and her team on open dialogue as to what next steps will be there. Again, no determinations have been made. I don't think that something that's in quite the same proximity as was with the last facility will be what we look to do there. But in any event, we'll definitely be in communication.
So there'll
more
be
so
some
with the
kind of
community.
barrier between the houses and the new facility?
Well, so the building that burned down, when I say it was to code, one of the codes, as I understand it, is the distance from the exterior wall to the perimeter and to other structures. And in that context, the distances were all met. But having a building of that size that's right there along that tree line with that type of product in it is not something that I foresee us doing again.
Is it the state code or the local?
It's a federal code. The state adopts building codes, but the codes are not developed by the state. They're adopted by the state. But there's other types of buildings as well that if, wood pellets in particular, which is what the fire was, is to be handled there again. There are other types of buildings. That was a flat storage building versus a dome, and how the cargo or the commodity is put into and taken out of one facility versus another. There are certain safety enhancements, at least as I understand it, that come with a different type of building that might be preferred to what was there before.
Does the state have any oversight regarding the removal of the pellets and where they're?
No, not in terms of where they
Third party?
take them to, right. The cargo owner, I believe, is technically responsible for taking what's left from that building and off-site. It's my understanding that they actually can reconstitute those back into pellets. It's basically just sawdust after they get wet like that, those that hadn't burned and gone away. But it's not in the state's scope to remove them, but what happens with them is the cargo owners, and they're pretty much done with that in the building site now. I think they have some remaining cleanup otherwise.
Are they more flammable? Excuse me, allergies. Are they more flammable in a building or outside? Because they've been moved to Glendale Drive, and I've had people ask the question, can they catch on fire there?
I don't think that they can be adequately stored outside, because if they get wet, they deteriorate. So I think they have to be handled inside to maintain the integrity of the commodity itself. But any inside storage, there's safety features that folks would want to see in place, such as dust controls, fire suppression, etc. And those systems existed in the building that burned down, and how they were managed is a different question that is for the other folks to resolve with one another.
So as you keep saying about the management, has someone been fired that should have been managing it properly?
Not to my knowledge. Our relationship with our tenant is something we'll be discussing with them and what the path forward looks like. But it's not within our scope to determine anybody's employment there.
How much of an economic loss has it been to our community and economic?
I'm not really sure. The cargo itself and the jobs, the revenue that comes with handling that during the period of time from the fire to whenever, if it was to assume that it would be resumed at the same level, will be pretty significant. I mean, that facility itself, the wood pellets, I think, were about 60% of the total cargo handled there. That's on the business side of the equation, but the most important thing is the safety. So if it takes a little time to get that back up to speed, then so be it, if it's what it takes to do it right. But I think that the scope is kind of wide open in terms of what the next steps might be.
And you don't know how many jobs were lost?
I do not know. I mean, Logistic, our tenant there, they're still operational with other cargo. What it's meant for them and their direct manpower, I'm not familiar with. Most of the one thing with dry bulk cargo like that, it's handled kind of en masse. It doesn't involve a lot of individualized touching handling. So you've got trucks or trains that drop it off, and it's conveyed into a ship. So it certainly does involve jobs, but losing that, it's not the same as if we lost half the business at Colonel's Island, where you've got so many longshore workers and everybody else is touching each individual car in the process, if that makes sense.
So, but when when this devastation happens to Glynn County, and the ships that were feeding that facility are now being diverted to other ports, and it's a loss of
Sure.
for Glynn County?
Unfortunately, I'm not sure that they're able to even divert to other ports. I suspect that some of that volume is going in different directions, whether it be Savannah or Jacksonville, but a lot of it's sitting and waiting, as I understand it, which is arguably the greater negative impact in terms of jobs and increased costs right now is from the forest products industry and from the peanut folks in terms of when they're harvesting timber or they're harvesting the peanuts that are shelled, the shells go to make peanut pellets, and the byproduct of the timber when it goes to a lumber yard, it's that byproduct that goes to make the pellets. So when it's trimmed, the debris is a lot of what's in those pellets, and so that's becoming a bit of a backlog right now, and storage is running very tight in some of those inland areas.
My understanding is that it's not economically feasible to truck that stuff to Savannah. The pellets anyway, I don't know about the peanuts, but from the barns over there who have a pellet thing in Hoboken, I mean, the economic tentacles run deeper than just here. I mean, they got pellets piled up to the world over there.
That's true.
And nothing to do with it.
And do you know when we'll be back up and running again, or y'all will be back up and running?
Well, so the fire commissioner's report lays out to Logistic what needs to be done for them to handle the either peanut pellets or wood pellets again. How long it takes them to do that remains to be seen, and what the maximum volume as a result of that also remains to be seen. We certainly don't have the capacity with that building gone to handle as much, but they've got to have to limit the volume that they're putting in the remaining buildings and put in some safety features that will further limit that capacity. But at least there's a pathway there that they could get to some reopening and provide some relief to those folks and get some of those jobs cranked back up again. But you're right, Mr. Brunson, the margin's pretty thin, and trucking it any further than you have to becomes a challenge. But also the facility in Savannah can't handle it all either. So it's a very important facility for that sector of the forest products industry in particular.
But this facility will be rebuilt here in Brunswick and be back up and running here locally. It won't be.
They will be. We don't have any plans to move. We don't really know exactly what's going to happen now. But again, there's a path towards resumption of that, and then the long-term strategy in terms of getting back to the scale that it was before. That's a bit of an open question because we got to make sure that it can be done the right way. We can't. This is not a acceptable 3 strikes and you're out situation. It's 2 strikes. Yes, sir. Any other questions?
Yeah, I was hearing, and Sammy mentioned it, but I'm hearing a lot of ifs, and it's raising the question, will this plant be replaced? Or the storage facility?
Just not sure yet. I mean, I'm not going to hide from it. We don't know what the right thing to do is yet. We've, again, just receiving that report yesterday. We've not had a chance to sit down with our legal team, with insurance carriers, and see what their expectations are and what can be accomplished. We have a sense of what the expectations of the state fire marshal are in terms of the short term and ultimately what the long term would need to be designed to. But the cost of that, the timing of that, the layout of that, it's we just don't know yet. It's too early in the state, even though it's been, going on 6 weeks almost from the fire, and we again just got that report yesterday.
And can you, at your earliest convenience, give us a timeline of
Sure.
when that might happen?
Yeah, and we'd like to have the you guys and the staff involved in the conversation as to understanding before any final decisions are made what that's going to look like, because it's we know that the community is concerned, the city, the county, and folks all around here. Nobody wants to see anything like that happen again, and we don't want to make a unilateral decision to do something that people are not unilaterally fond of. I'm not sure that unilaterally fond of is a possibility, but we're going to engage the community in that conversation.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Item number 2 on our agenda today is to receive an update from the Coast Guard Unified Command regarding the Golden Ray response. So we thank you guys for coming in today. Look forward to, I thought everybody was leaving. I thought
No, we delivered the water.
Now, promise to stay. All right, good afternoon. I'm the Federal On-Scene Coordinator, Commander Efren Lopez, and
My name's John Maddox. I'm the State On-Scene Coordinator with Georgia EPD.
I'm Chris Graff. I'm the Incident Commander for Gallagher Marine Systems. We are the responsible party representative, and we cover over 5,000 ships that trade to the U.S. We do their incident management for any incidents that run.
Where are you located out of?
Huh?
Where are you located out of?
I'm out of Southern California, but I was here on day one.
all right, so we'll go ahead and start. I'm sure everybody's noticed that half of the wreck is gone. So good accomplishment. So 4 sections have been removed. They've been transported to Gibson, Louisiana. The remaining sections will be cut and placed onto a dry dock, and they'll remain here where they'll do partial dismantling. So we have been working on Section 3 since early part of May. As everybody's aware, on the 14th of May, we had a fire. So that caused some delays. Once we were able to do the assessments and identify the items that were damaged or that need additional repairs, we started cutting again on Section 3. But Section 3 is turning out to be a little bit more difficult because of some of the materials and the brackets that are in place. So that's where has really put a number on all our equipment and on the materials. So right now we're paused again, trying to do those repairs, and hopefully by the end of the week, towards the beginning of next week, we can start cutting again. We are also looking at different methods to continue cutting, or maybe even move in for the next sections. So we're looking at different codes right now, and we'll be modifying our operations. Same thing we've been doing since the beginning. We've had to modify operations and timeframes and everything according to what we're encountering with each section of the ship. But our plan continues to be to remove the wreck, and we plan to do this in a safe manner, protecting all our responders, the community, as well as the environment. From the beginning, we knew that we were going to be facing a lot of situations that we're unaware of. So we've always mentioned that we were going to have fires, that we're going to have some discharges, all right? Things were going to be loud out there. And we've had those situations. We anticipate that we'll continue having those situations. And that's why the amount of personnel that we have here and all the equipment is essential. This is all critical and to mitigate any kind of fires or discharges. So we keep maintaining all our personnel here on site. The big question is always, when are we going to get done? You know, that is a big question. We continue to move forward. We have encountered some difficulties. And as we encounter those, we immediately look into alternatives and we adjust our plans accordingly. So over the next several months, we'll continue cutting. The plan is once the last section is removed, we'll go ahead and clean out the environmental protection barrier. Once that's cleaned out, then we'll go ahead and break down the environmental protection barrier. All right. So with that, a lot of concerns have been brought up because of hurricane season. A few people mentioned last year we shut down operations because of hurricane season. Hurricane season was a factor, but it wasn't the whole reason. We had COVID, we were impacted by COVID, so we had to put some measures in place to protect all our responders and to protect the experts that we bring in from around the world to work on this operation. This season is no different. We have no intentions to stop operations. We do have a hurricane, we will pause, and as soon as it's safe, we'll start operations again. Last year, we tested our heavy weather plan. We found a couple areas that we can improve, but it was very effective. We plan to continue using that heavy weather plan. So no intentions to stop operations. We plan to continue through and continue removing the wreck and taking care of the environment here as well as all our personnel and so on. We have a great partnership with the National Weather Service and with the Glynn County EOC. We're in constant meetings with them, so we're prepared to address any issues or any heavy weather that may come in. So pending any questions, that's pretty much it. So,
Do you have a price tag of how much money has been spent so far?
no, sir, there's different funding sources, so we would have to add all those up. So I'm not privileged to adding every single one. We have other operations that we're taking care of at this time.
Ballparks?
Sir, I don't give ballpark.
Okay,
That's,
all right.
unless I have the numbers, I can't provide that. Thank you.
And I'm sure you probably have mentioned this in some of your other briefings, but how many ships have been cut up as we're doing this operation?
I think this is the first of its kind. I mean,
That's
I don't
what
think
thought,
we.
but
That's why this is so difficult, and we're learning
Yeah.
every time. As we cut each section, we're always learning, and we're getting the lessons learned, and we're implementing it for the next section.
Yeah.
Well, there's
Right.
additional challenges, as you know, the Jones Act, you're aware of that. So all the vessels and equipment used on anything domestically has to be U.S. equipment. So therefore, you're limited on the types of cranes you have, the types of vessels for moving. In the international world, there's some huge equipment that could have been brought in, but that's not what we have the ability to do. So we had to make the plans up in accordance with what we could utilize for this response.
And this big cutter, the DB 10,000?
BB 10,000,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
Yeah. It's made to cut ships, or is it made for some other purpose and modified to cut?
No, it was designed to cut up decommissioned oil rigs in the Gulf.
Okay.
It was specially designed to handle that kind of a lift, and it just happened to fit that the ship on its side like that could fit in between it. And so it was very unique, very good challenge, but again, it's never been done, utilized for that. They're adjusting as they go, and as the commander pointed
And
out, it's taken a little wear and tear on some of these sections when they're pulling that heavy chain through, the steel on steel, and right now we're repairing a block, one of the blocks right now. So.
And the VB was modified for this operation.
Yeah.
So just like all the other assets that we brought in, they've required some modifications so that we can use it for this response. Just as well as the dry docks that we're using, they were modified to receive these sections specifically. So everything that we brought on to this response, we've had to custom fit to our operations. And in that, it takes time to fit those assets to meet the needs of our response.
And the fire did no damage to the
We had some damage to the lifting lugs, the straps that hang
Yeah.
down, and then those are specially designed, as you know, they're about this big around. They may not look like it from shore, but dynamic, and they had to be specially made and sent off, and had to get that repair work done.
Were
So
the
section-
winds that day what saved the most of that? Because it looked intense, but it looked like it was going horizontal rather than vertical on it.
I don't know if it saved it or intensified it.
So, the fire feeds off the oxygen. So, and that's why when we activated the firefighting equipment, which I have to compliment the crews on that. We practice firefighting drills, we practice abandoned ship drills. These guys did an excellent job. They activated all the firefighting equipment and all the personnel moved in. They evacuated people out of there. And we were able to put out the fire before sunset.
Yeah.
So just that effort, and with the oxygen feeding into the fire itself, they were able to put it down. So that's, kudos to all the guys out there in the field.
If you recall, we had several fires so far, but early on, the ship was contained, so the fires that broke out choked themselves out within the ship itself. And we also had firefighting assets were on barges next to the ship. Now we have the VB 10,000 there, so you can only fight it from either end. That's it. It's the only way into it. So it's a little challenging.
It just looked like the way the wind was blowing that day, and it's intense. It was just blowing it right off the back of the, blowing it inland.
Well, believe it or not, there's still cars hanging, which is amazing,
And
right?
they're not even burnt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow.
How much oil and bunker fuel and pollutants has been, have we estimated that's been released, and how much has been collected through the boom system? Is there a way to measure that? Do we have a way to measure that, or any knowledge about where some of that is ending up?
Well, Scott, you want to come on up? He's our environmental unit, so he can probably answer some of it, if it can be answered. It's hard because it's oily water mix, but go ahead.
Yeah, the quick answer is we don't know at this point. There are a lot of variables. In order to really know, we'd have to do a mass balance. Now, there's still likely some quantity of oil on the ship. We don't know how much that is. As far as oil that has been collected in the skimmers, we collect that and end up with these oily water mixtures. From there, we send that to a recycling facility down in Jacksonville. They send us numbers of actual oil that they were able to extract out of that oily water. On top of that, you've got oil that is still in a ship section that may be transported to Louisiana. Until we get numbers back from there, we also don't know how much oil was there. So you have all of these different components and a lot of unknowns at this point. And so the other issue is that the initial amount that was estimated to be on the ship was just that. It's an estimate. And it was based on records, but then there were lots of tanks that did not have records. So there were some assumptions made that any number of tanks were at, let's say, 50% full. And so that number, there is some margin of error there that we'll never know. So it's not as simple as it may seem. But that's as we get more information, the ship sections are taken down, disassembled, and we get those final numbers. We'll come closer to that, but we'll never know an exact amount. And there's no way of accurately estimating based on oil visible on the surface. So that's kind of the reality.
Bunker fuel, as I understand it, it really kind of sinks below the surface. Is that correct? And did I hear that correctly? Which is the primary fuel for the ship?
No, I mean some of it. I think most of it will float.
Stay on the top?
Right. Now, with that said, you do end up with oil that may trickle up out of the ship during cutting, and depending on the tidal currents, it may be flushed outside of the EPB by the time it surfaces. And we know this, and so that's why having the layered defense system that we have, we're not relying on any one layer of defense, such as the EPB, the Environmental Protection Barrier, to be a cure-all. And so that's why we have other assets outside. And then, of course, we have the shoreline cleanup crews, SCAT teams, aerial ops. That's a major component. We have a helicopter that flies around the entire AOR twice a day, typically. Flies out over the marsh, goes up to Sea Island, back over across the marsh, down around the causeway, over to East River, back down, goes around the wreck site, down Jekyll, Cumberland, and back up, and does that typically twice a day. And they've been able to identify some very small areas that were impacted recently with fresh oil back in the marsh. Now, those areas were, I think the largest one found was roughly 30 meters by 5 meters. And then the smallest where it was half a meter by half a meter. So really small areas. Those areas were treated with a sawdust type material that adheres to wet oil, and that helps cut down on any transference of oil to any wildlife that may be in that area.
And then finally, the amount of rock that's been put underneath the ship to stabilize it, I believe there's some containers, that's what I was told, with rock in it. I assume, as I understand it, all of that will be removed, is that correct?
That's correct, but it's not used to stabilize the wreck. It's actually to go ahead and protect the wreck from erosion, scouring.
Which could then affect the wreck.
It could, yes.
But that will all be removed?
It will be removed.
Yeah, Commissioner, a little follow-up on a lot of, since I do oil spills all around, the easiest normal way you have is a tank gets breached or something like that. Therefore, you know how much is in that tank, going to what Scott was saying. Then you can do your mass balance because you know how much you lost, how much you recovered. But on this, there's several tanks. There's also, I don't know, we had 20-something that didn't have any volume amounts to them. So, like I said, we just made assumptions. There's going to be a lot of area that you couldn't put a number to.
And was there ever a final determination who was at fault or what was at fault to cause this?
I believe the investigation is being finalized. I think the attorneys are reviewing it before it becomes public, but I would estimate probably within the next few weeks it should be out.
Fortunately, we don't have to be part of that.
No, we're not. It's a different Coast Guard individuals that are investigating it.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Captain Fendick, Island Commissioner, and out there every day and day
Yes.
and night since the event started. First, I want to commend you on the safety aspect. It's
Thank you.
a total miracle of what I observe and what I know goes on and the conditions of working, that nobody has suffered further death. I really commend you on that. I see everybody out there working every day, and we've all gotten to know one another. And just to commend you on the safety part. And the fire, that was, I came around the corner of Jekyll right when it blew, and you had 30, 35 knot east wind blowing right up the tunnel, so it was like a flamethrower out the back.
Yes, sir.
That was remarkable that they put it out. All your team have done an exceptional job. Pollution, yes, I see it every day in some form, but y'all have been honest about it, and you've been proactive about it, and done a good job, I think, to contain, because, as your groups have found out, our currents are pretty swift,
Yes.
and not the norm that people experience, and to contain anything in a 4 or 6 knot current with wind behind it has been great. Y'all have done a great job, and just anything that we can do to continue to support the safety and the removal.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Well, in all things, I think you need to find a silver lining, and I will admit you've got to dig pretty deep here to find a silver lining, but I know that Epworth, who had no business because of COVID-19, has been fully occupied and booked through this, and so they've even made a video, and so you guys have been a windfall for a major player here in this market, and your folks have had to eat, and your folks have had to do a lot of things that have supported, been an economic impact for our economy, and I'm certainly not trying to say we need another golden ray by any stretch of the imagination, but you got to find a little good in all things. So, and again, I thank you for all y'all have done.
No, thank you, and we appreciate the community and everybody here in the county who's been supporting us from the very beginning, even through some difficult times and so on. So it's been a great partnership with everybody here. Thank you.
Anything else, Commissioners?
Thank you so much for
Thank you,
taking
sir.
time to come in and give us an update.
Thank you.
Item number 3 on our agenda is to receive a presentation from Alex Muir, I'm sorry,
That's okay.
with the 100 Miles Group on the container ordinance.
It's here. We've just got a copy of the container ordinance and our proposed changes for you guys to look at, so you're not wondering what we're talking about. Oh, I'm a lot shorter. Hi, Commissioners. My name is Alex Muir. I work with 100 Miles. I've spoken to many of you, and for those of you I haven't met yet, it's a pleasure to be here today. We are an advocacy organization locally, and we work to protect our 100-mile coast. And we have a program called the Youth Environmental Leadership Program that brings in local high school students to understand more about what they can actually do in their community to make a change locally. This year I worked with a group of high school students from many high schools around the Glynn County area, and they thought about what can we do to make our beaches wildlife friendly. And they had several ideas, including, getting dogs to stay on leashes and how to improve lighting around our beaches to make it more sea turtle friendly, but those felt big, right? And we were all about, you can have an impact even if it's small. You can still make a huge impact. So with that, they came to the idea of updating the container ordinance to include styrofoam, and this is just for Glynn County beaches. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to McKenzie Buck, and she is going to explain what the group that she led came up with.
Right, thank you. Thank you for having us. So our proposal, what I love about our proposal is that it's quite simple, especially when I just listen to all the other things that were discussed here. This is very simple. It's an amendment to section 2-11-17, and it is literally only a 3-word change, which you can see in red on your handouts. It's adding polystyrene to the ordinance and deleting sharp. And so you're probably wondering why. Why do we care to do this, especially if it is something that is that small? I can give you 3 good reasons. The first is to protect the beaches that drive Glynn County's tourism and hospitality industry. The second is that it addresses challenges with heavy traffic beach weekends, especially Frat Beach, but basically Memorial Day on. And Alex can quick speak to KGIP's program.
Yeah, so a couple of you guys, we've talked with you about this, and Keep Golden Isles Beautiful is already on board with doing a program where they swap out the styrofoam coolers for free with people who come to the beach at Frat Beach, and I believe also July 4th at times. Parker's Convenience Store has been a partner in doing that program with them, and there is an alternative that is recyclable. It is the cardboard coolers, which when I heard that I was, really? You can use cardboard as a cooler? But they do have special coolers that are made that can be broken down and recycled that are made of cardboard that Keep Golden Isles Beautiful and Parker's Convenience Stores have distributed before.
Thanks. So the third and final reason, which I think really encompasses the 2 reasons that I just mentioned, is protecting the residents of Glynn County. When we protect our environment, which drives tourism and hospitality, we also protect the residents of Glynn County in terms of not only their health, but jobs, tax reductions, and cost savings. So a couple fast facts about industry. So more than 15,000 jobs in Glynn County are related to tourism and hospitality in some way. Now, 18% is a bit on the smaller side. When you actually take the calculations and look at the population of Glynn County that is available for work, so non-college students and those who aren't or cannot participate in the workforce for some reason, the jobs percentage actually approaches close to 30%. And so from that, we have an annual tax savings per household from tourism is $858. And this has been calculated by the Golden Isles CVB. So that's where these numbers are coming from. And in terms of infrastructure, more than $530 million has been invested in Glynn County in terms of infrastructure improvements and investments since 2011. So for those reasons, we have concluded, and every economic report I've ever read from Glynn County has concluded, that tourism-related industries are the base of the Glynn County economy. $1.7 billion was the economic impact of tourism in 2018 alone. And so some fast facts about plastics. So polystyrene makes up about 90% of all marine debris, and 80% of that pollution comes from the land. And so it's not a huge stretch to think that, well, beaches are adjacent to the ocean, and that is land. So about 80% of pollution comes from beaches, essentially. And plastic is found in 86% of sea turtles, and given that polystyrene makes up about 90% of that, polystyrene is what's mainly found in sea turtles. And so that is the #1 offender, and it's the key player in pollution. Now, the reason why this is so important is because, in my opinion, and I think most of us will agree, that tourism and our environment are inextricably linked. We cannot have tourism without our pristine environment. And if we lose our environment, then we lose all the economic benefits that I just discussed, in addition to hurting our wildlife, like our sea turtles. So I think that we wouldn't want to do anything to possibly jeopardize that, and this will help. So other locations have done this before us. This isn't anything radical or new. We see how it plays out. A lot of these places are from South Carolina, Isle of Palms, Folly Beach, Mount Pleasant, Sullivan's Island, Kiowa Island, and of course Miami. And there are numerous other locations in Florida who have also considered these things. And in addition to considering polystyrene, these places have also actually taken further action that we have yet to take. So like I said, ours is kind of baby steps. They have banned polystyrene at the point of sale, straws, plastic bags, etc. That is not what we came here to do. We came here to take polystyrene off of our beaches and our beaches only. So statewide polystyrene laws, Virginia, Maryland, Vermont, New York, Colorado, Maine, and more under consideration. Georgia actually has a similar proposal under consideration concerning state lands. And so I think we'd like to be one step ahead of the folks in Atlanta when we do this. So essentially what we came here to ask you all to do is we wanted to ask whether or not you would be willing to take a vote on this at some point over the summer. Thank you.
McKenzie, the only thing I can say is it is not hard to figure out why you were accepted to that great institution of higher learning, the University of Georgia. Very well done.
Thank you.
Excellent job. And, you know, I think from my perspective, it's something we as a board should really look into and consider. I think when you look at our beaches and the fact that styrofoam, do we know how long it lasts? I mean, you know.
On land, it lasts anywhere from 500 to 1,000 years. Obviously,
Okay.
we
I
don't
mean,
know
you
for
when
sure.
you, like, if you go and walk the certain parts of the beaches and marshes, you'll see styrofoam. It's looks like it's been there for a number of years. It's something I can get behind.
Thank
Are
you.
y'all proposing any alternative?
Any alternative in terms of styrofoam?
Yeah.
I think Alex can speak to
Yeah,
that.
so we spoke to Leah King Bodina at Keep Golden Isles Beautiful, and she said that there are, and actually I called Parker's this morning, because I was trying to get a version of those cardboard coolers to bring in today, and they have reusable coolers now in their store. So they're kind of taking it a step further where it's not even just the cardboard, it's reusable. They do still offer styrofoam, but of course this would not impact that. So in terms of alternatives, I think it might have been Commissioner O'Quinn asked us when we met with you about this. There are so many alternatives these days with the bags that are easy to carry with a strap, or the like larger durable plastic containers as well, or these recyclable cardboard coolers, and that Parker's is familiar with and has sold. So there are alternatives out there.
Well, I mean, you were, I'm just trying to play the devil's
I
advocate here.
totally understand. Do it all the time.
You're referring to coolers primarily, but there's also cups and other containers that are not cooler.
Yeah.
What is your alternative to that?
Gotcha. I do not have an exact alternative. There's plenty of paper cup and plastic cups that can be recycled that are 1s and 2s that are recyclable material for us here in the U.S. Whereas polystyrene is a number 6 plastic, which is actually not recyclable currently for another purpose in the U.S., even though it has that recycling symbol on it. This is a little further in detail, but China has actually decided in 2017 they will no longer take our recycling over there, our plastics over in China to recycle. So we are hitting a point where a lot of the plastics we have are not going to be recycled in the U.S. And 1s and 2s are the only plastics that we truly have the ability to recycle here in the U.S. So the solo cups would still be a 1 and 2.
They're acceptable.
Well, according to what is currently in the ordinance, we have banned plastic cups that will splinter into sharp pieces. And so by that ordinance, they would still be acceptable, and I don't believe they would fall, even if we take out the word sharp, I don't think they would fall into plastic cups that can break into multiple pieces. But yeah, there is a way to recycle them here. So by my standards, I don't feel like they're as much of a problem than styrofoam cups.
Plastic is the answer.
Plastic is the answer?
Is that what you're saying?
Oh, I think options that can be recycled or reused are the answer. I mean, in terms of what's going to be easiest for people like who are selling drinks at their store, which was the perspective I was coming at it from, they can sell reusable cups that can be brought back and refilled, or they could sell something that can be actually recycled in the U.S. That's my answer.
And this is just the beach, it's not a point of sale ban?
Yeah. Yeah.
Commissioners, I talked with the ladies a good while back when they brought this forth. Styrofoam is a problem. It's the next step in what we as a society need to do and a community. And I definitely suggest that we move this forward to make a change in it at the end of the summer. I wouldn't want to throw it in right now in the mix of summer. The only issue is enforcement and this kind of stuff, but it's the public conscience, I think, to move forward and embrace this.
Thank you, Commissioner Fendick. I agree enforcement is difficult, but it is about getting the community on board, and the way that we have signs that say no glass, saying no styrofoam certainly sets an expectation of how we would like visitors and residents to respect our beaches, which drive tourism and hospitality industry. I do just want to add that the numbers McKenzie used were actually from the Golden Isles Convention and Visitors Bureau, so she didn't just pull those out of thin air. And then I spoke to Keep Golden Isles Beautiful many a times about this. Their sentiment was that this is the next logical step. They've been doing the program where they swap out coolers for many years. I was told they've probably switched out at least 400 coolers, and that was a conservative estimate. So there are people still coming to the beaches with styrofoam, and certainly is something we should address. And Leah was quick to tell me that those coolers don't make it off the beach. They are quick to break on the beach, on the boardwalks to the beach, so. All right. Any other questions?
Anything else?
Great job.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Item number 4 today is to receive an update on our SPLOST 2016 projects, and we have Dave Austin and it looks like we got Paul today, so appreciate y'all coming forward. We appreciate the updates that you're giving us each month as we move these projects forward.
Yes, sir.
And work to get them completed. So thank you for your time.
All right, yes,
Thank you
sir.
for your effort.
All right, Omega is proceeding. I think this report says 79%. We're a little above that right now, and we've got a couple roads left to do, and then we're going to do the widening on Kings Way after Labor Day. That was something Commissioner Figney wanted us to do either at night or after Labor Day, and they've chosen to do it after Labor Day.
Are you going to run?
Yeah. I guess we can punch them out.
Yeah.
There we go.
Canal Road project. This is widening. We had a visit from our Army Corps of Engineers for the wetland review. Positive results from that. They are verbally in agreement with our consultant's determination of wetlands. We went ahead and had a meeting with the Airport Commission regarding the intersection alignment impactful to the wetlands question, and I think we've got an alignment through there that the wetlands aren't going to be impacted by jurisdictional wetlands. Our consultant is working on finalizing the draft for the median revision that was approved and getting that to the county for final review and approval. Acquisition, we've moved forward, getting some traction. We've got 4 that we're scheduling for closings, 3 already closed, and 5 that the attorney's office is scheduled for closing. 1 that we've got to work with a counter offer, and then 4 that we're still under negotiations. As soon as we can get it out to bid, we're gonna move it forward, and that's where the wetland jurisdictional determination is going to help get it closer to that. Dungeness Drive. I've met with the Georgia DOT. They are expecting to have their concept that they'd like us to consider. They're hoping by the end of this week. I'm guessing early next week, and I'll get that out to you as soon as I get it for y'all to consider and see if it's direction you want to move. That's the additional travel lane from Martin Palmer all the way to the intersection at 82 and 17 to provide some access there, and then additional signage within the subdivision.
This is Pennock Road. Of course, you rejected the bid. We've downscoped it. I just need a commission approval, our commissioner's approval on the two bid options, and I've sent emails to those commissioners. As soon as we get that out, Jason's ready to drop the bid and put it out on the street.
Thank you.
There's no change in this. Contractor hasn't started, but he told me he's fixing to. This is complete. We just have to do the thermo, and that has to wait for the asphalt a little bit. So I think they're scheduled 22nd, 23rd of July, and you may notice that Sea Island's doing a great job on landscaping, and they're finishing that up. They're still working on that.
Good job.
So the Spur and Altama connector, that's approved. We are in weekly meetings with our attorney's office and our procurement folks, and we want to finalize, we're attempting to finalize all the easements and right-of-ways in order to award this bid by the 15th of July.
This project is the section of Needwood, Harry Triggers Boulevard, from Needwood out to Highway 17. We've got a notice to proceed set for towards the end of this month. The contractor should be out there and getting to work on it. We expect that to move forward pretty quickly.
Do you expect it to start this month?
The notice to proceed is the time we expect the contractor to start mobilizing to the site. So yes, sir. I don't think they'll put concrete down in the last couple of days, but
What's the time frame on getting that complete?
it's we gave them a 4-month window. We asked them to get out there when they get out there and get started to hit it hard and get it done because of the traffic out there. I don't expect they're going to have it finished by the time school starts, but they know they've got to deal with that schedule and the loading.
How many
Yes, sir.
right-of-way easements are we waiting on for the Home Depot intersection, for lack of a better?
You know.
So there were 16 original.
Right.
We're neck down to about 2 or 3 tough ones. Okay?
Home Depot, one of them?
No, Home Depot is not one of them. Home Depot has basically told us, go ahead and we'll look at it and then we'll let you know if we like it or not. The tough ones are on the other side of the street.
Is it the amount of money?
One of the, they've requested a monument sign the same size as the monument sign they have, which is, yes, bottom line it's money, but it's a lot of money. So the attorneys are in. I may be talking too much. The attorneys are working on that.
Anything we as a commission can do?
They're going to come to you about that, possible condemnation actions on 2 or 3 properties.
This slide is the portion of Harry Triggers, the trail project on what we're calling the south end. This is the one that's the T-grant funded. We bid it, came in well over bid. Georgia DOT found additional funds. Y'all as the board authorized moving forward with that agreement to accept those funds and put additional monies to it. Staff is working to get all that information straight with Georgia DOT so they can release the funds to us. We have the contractor in place. As soon as we can get paperwork worked out, we're going to get that underway.
This is underway. Contractor has been cutting concrete from Frederica roundabout at Lawrence Road down to Colonial and Sea Palms. So you might see some dust on the sidewalk. That's what's been going on.
This project, this College Park outfalls that the city and the county are working on, we are working to address comments from the Coastal Resources Division regarding downstream ownership. We're reaching out to property owners down there. They need some release of authorization even to move forward with permitting. We've made application to the state for funds to prepare a preliminary engineering report that would go along with the next round of block grants that are coming out. So we'll be in a better position to be competitive for the block grant that's coming out in the fall. And we've made requests to the state for those funds. Expect to get those and should be underway preparing that finalized report for it.
And I know, Paul, on this.
Yes, sir.
That we had a game plan, then it looked like we were gonna get the grants, then we didn't get the grants, we're reapplying. Do we have any dire needs out there that might need, some attention, during this?
Maintenance-wise?
Maintenance, anything that, do we need to alleviate any immediate problem out there, or is it possible to alleviate any of the immediate problem?
When we put the contract together that EMC Engineering has been working on, that was one of the tasks that we requested of them, is to identify areas where we could put some money to and have some immediate and closer benefits. The system, the city and the county have been working on it. You know, this is not a new drainage trouble, so we have worked on that system and worked on it. The area that was identified would be opening up the ditch in the, I believe it's the Crystal Lake subdivision. And we got in and looked at that, and the benefits to getting in there and trying to open that up did not seem worth it to get because of the nature of that ditch. There was a reason we stopped using it, is it has its own troubles. So we haven't identified any that were substantial that we could say outside of regular maintenance, making sure everything's clean and maintained.
Yeah, any imminent danger at College Park with hurricane season upon us, I guess is what I'm looking at. I know we have drainage issues there, so.
The same ones we've had.
Yeah.
And I know that everybody, you know, the city and the county are aware to make sure that system is as open and available for drainage as possible.
And I think we talked one time about having emergency pumps to help in any
pumps.
No pumps, no would pumps help at any point in flood relief or not? Temporary, you know, or I'm just asking.
That was an alternative that got looked at as a way to address the flooding troubles 3 years ago or so. The problem that they ran into was finding a place to pump to.
Right.
Is that without a place to put the discharges were so far away that pump discharge was excessive. So I'm not sure that we can relook at it and see whether there's any possibility for ability to put in temporary pumps, but that was the problem with the pumping system, was just the distance to the discharge.
That pediatrics facility, hospital or doctor's office, whatever it is going in the corner there.
Dentist.
Huh?
It's a dentist's office.
Is it what?
Dentist.
Oh, pediatric dentist, yeah. I know theoretically that's not going to exacerbate the drainage problem, but have we done any, is that engineered any way to possibly help the drainage problem?
I'm sure the city of Brunswick, as they are aware of it through that permitting process,
You haven't had any?
required that. I can verify that with the city, but I know they have similar ordinance to us that would say you have to put in things in place to do that.
Well, I know since we were both working on that thing, whether we were involved in.
Yeah, I
We were
asked
not.
questions, I think the city asked, so they're supposed to be okay, so I guess we'll find out. Because it just still looks so low to me. You know,
I
right there.
thought the same thing. I mean, you know, and
Yeah.
you're putting an impervious surface in there and,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I just, so, we'll see.
Just hoping something would be something to help.
This is the project that is a joint project with the county and Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. Last meeting we had, the Pellets had requested that we move towards maintaining the system after construction. We're working to update the MOU before we send that over to Pellets for their consideration. We'll put it out for the board to take a look at and see if it's where we want to go. That's a fairly big change from where we have been proceeding, in that we don't maintain within Pellets now. That would change our processes pretty heavily. This is the drainage improvements for the area north of Highway 99. We had Phase 1 out to bid. Those came in as a request for, a qualifications-based review, since it was the engineering part. Staff reviewed it. Finance Department is finalizing that, and we're going to get an item to the Board of Commissioners to authorize the contract as soon as it's available. This is the project that we're tying. It's ready to go, but we're tying it with the South Palm Ditch, which is this is the one that has trying to finalize negotiations. I've got hopefully the last bit will be to get costs for tree removal for the property owner out there, and we will get a cost together that they can accept, and we will, fingers crossed, that'll finalize that, and we'll be ready to go with it.
We're still expecting completion 1 August.
Have we been in touch with the DOT? We had spoken with them not too long ago about extending the turn lane on the Golden Isles Parkway to Canal Road, going westbound. They told me that they had money available and could do that project relatively quickly. Have they been in contact with you guys at all on that?
And so that's extending the turn lane on the spur at Canal Road?
From the spur onto Canal Road, so we, going back up toward Walker, extend that turn lane.
No, we'll send them a tickler.
Yeah, they had told me that they had funds available up to a certain dollar amount, and that they could extend it by several hundred feet for that dollar amount, and they were going to put it on the fast track to do it.
We'll send them a note, see if they remember what they told us, what they promised.
Encourage them to do it.
And I guess while we're here, any update past courthouse security coming back from our consultant?
Flexi guy said he was on it and he was going to send me something, but I mean, I've gotten that twice.
Are we at a point where we need to look at other alternatives there?
Well, I mean,
they gave us a lot of ideas.
I haven't seen what their report is yet.
Yeah, I mean, it was the verbal conversation that day at the courthouse.
Right.
Things that we might could do that maybe we can start implementing.
We could. Let me.
We'll talk again on that.
All right.
Okay, thank you. And thank y'all for coming in.
Thank y'all.
And giving us an update.
Commissioner Fenday, you look like you feel like the devil. You need to go home and go to bed.
It's a hot summer, no hell.
Yeah. That concludes our regular agenda. Do we have anything for executive session today? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Chairman, I move we adjourn the meeting. I'll second that.
All right, we got Commissioner O'Quinn, motion to adjourn with Commissioner Bronson, second. All in favor, please say aye. Hurry, David, and Bill are out the door.